You know, the last 23 months has been absolutely brutal on so many of us. We all have our own little story that kind of stands out. I had the privilege to sit down with Piper of Prive, who not only bought a vineyard during COVID, but after moving onto the property, had to deal with the Oregon wildfires of 2020 less than a week after moving in. It's amazing to see the resilience and the mindset of Piper and how she approaches her winemaking, life, and just everything in general. So please sit down with me and enjoy this interview with Piper from Prive.
All right. Piper, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, ever since this summer. So thank you so much for sitting down today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Welcome to my dining room.
thank you. It's great. It's nice and cozy. It's foggy and everything.
Yeah.
Get out. It's kind of cold. I was kind of surprised when I drove out here.
It's not the day to go outside.
No,
Especially up here on the Shale Mountain. You don't want to be driving around.
no, you don't.
It's a little
Yeah, it was a little foggy. Shall I pour us a little bit of wine?
Sure.
Okay.
Love to.
Great. So as I pour it, feel free to comment on it if you want to. If you don't want to, it's totally fine. As I was kind of saying before we started, it's always nice to kind of sit down and talk about the people and stories behind wine and have wine be an accent to the conversation and not be the actual main,
Definitely.
main agenda.
Well, I'm excited you picked red because I know red's better than whites.
Darn
So
it.
I thought that was going to be pretty exciting.
Yay. I should have brought a Chardonnay or a Riesling or
I'm not
something
gonna lie.
else.
I had a dream last night that you brought a brick house Chardonnay, and I'm not really sure why specifically that
Oh
one.
no.
But I opened my eyes and I was like, "This is what it will be." And then you brought a red.
And you're like, phew, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm,
Really earthy.
it is. Yeah.
Super forest floor driven. Really nice. Smooth.
It's
Very complex. Blackberry. Raspberry. It's nice. It's got a really good tannin structure.
Yeah. Well, cheers.
Cheers to you.
Thank you.
Yes. Congratulations on this adventure.
Yes, thank you so
It's fun.
much. Yes. So, COVID, right? We're going on like 2 years of COVID,
Yeah.
and everybody kind of has a story or like my life has been kind of crazy. But if you just take like the last year and a half of your life, it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah.
Right? So toward the end of 2020, you purchased Prive Vineyard.
Mhm.
How did that like come about? I mean, we're going to kind of go through the timeline from
Yeah.
then till now, but like how did the purchase of, Prive come about? How did you hear about it? Like what happened there?
Well, we started looking kind of like January, February of 2020.
Right.
By we, I mean my partner Ben and my parents, both Charlie and Melanie, were all four partners in Prive, which is really cool. It's super family oriented. And we were all kind of at a financially responsible space in our lives where we had enough money to kind of do something different and start a business together. And I have a history in the wine world and was, giddy to get back into it and pretty excited. And so we started looking. We had chosen Oregon specifically because both Ben and I love mountains. We love mountain biking, skiing. We moved here from Utah. He's from Wyoming. We knew that it had to be connected to the outdoors somehow. And I had done most of my work in California, loved California wines, really enjoyed the people, but found it kind of not super connected to the outdoors
Right.
in the way that I wanted my life to be. And I'd heard great things about Oregon and had really only been out here one weekend to taste through some wines, and they were great wines. I always knew I wanted to make Pinot Noir since I was pretty young, and so Pinot Noir here and the mountains, I was like, probably a win.
Right.
And so we kind of started putting out some feelers. Weren't really finding anything that kind of spoke to us. A lot of properties that were actively for sale were needed some work, or needed to be planted, or something along those lines, or were really big operations, 5,000 plus cases, which is a lot for one person.
That is a lot, yes.
And so just kind of didn't really work out for us. So we reached out to a couple of people that we had become friends with in the Valley just through the wine world, and said, if you hear of anybody looking to sell or something, give us a shout. We're really interested.
Right.
And so our mutual friends knew Tina and Mark Hammond, who founded Prive Vineyard they founded Prive Vineyard in 2000, but they'd been farming the vineyard here since the early 90s. And so they had been kind of a staple in the area and had been trying to retire for 5 or 6 years, and their kids didn't want to take over. And so they COVID started kind of being around a topic of conversation, late February, early March, and they were like, well, this will probably never happen now, or we're probably in it for the long haul,
Right.
And took it off the market. And so I called Tina up one morning and was living in Park City, Utah, and sitting on my deck looking out at the mountains. And we have such drastically different life stories and such drastic different backgrounds, but very similar philosophies about winemaking. And we just hit it off. She became like a family, like a mom figure to me. And we flew out the next week, my father and I, to look at the property. We were here for 6 hours, and that was the day that the world shut down. It was like March 13th or so.
Oh, wow.
We were like the last flight back into Salt Lake. And we knew right then. I texted her on my drive home, was like, absolutely, let's drop some paperwork and move forward. So that's kind of how we found here. Poor Ben had no idea what he was getting into. He never saw Prive. He has no history in the industry, so it's kind of he was awesome. He was like, "Yep, okay, we're moving.
Let's do it."
Yeah. And
wow.
So we moved out. We moved out here early August, and the rest is kind of history. We've been here ever since.
Well, so on that one weekend or week that you came out to Oregon, do you remember the couple wineries that you visited or anything?
So I came the only time really that I've been here prior to seeing this property for the day was for the first barrel auction that was at the Allison. Oh gosh, I think it was like 15 or 16.
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, the first auction, I was working at the time for an urban winery in Park City, Utah. A friend of mine and I had started it, and he was a sommelier for a long time and sold a bunch of Dusky Goose throughout Utah. And Natalie Sigafus, who used to work there, brought him out for her guest. And he couldn't come. He was working. So he sent me. And I was so excited.
Oh, darn.
I was like, yeah, bummer, I have to leave the lab. Okay. And it was awesome. So we tasted like 60 plus wines. We toured all over. Adelsheim, Alexana both hosted events. And it was beautiful. It just so happened, I believe it was in March or April, and it just so happened that it was a beautiful sunny day. And I was like, what is everybody talking about in Oregon? This is beautiful.
It's gorgeous out here.
Wines a lot. I don't know.
Now you know.
Now I know. Yep. Our first winter here, I don't think I saw the sun for like everybody, a few months, and it was a little bit eye-opening.
Well, yeah. So speaking of like eye-opening and trying to find the right words, but like this is real, right? Mm-hmm. So you got here, moved in, and if I remember correctly, if I read correctly, 4 days afterwards, the fires of 2020.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, what was going through your head? I mean, they'll be like, did I make the right decision? Or, I mean, I'm just.
It's kind of interesting, right? Like I said, all of my schooling and work experience was in California. So I worked at Joseph Phelps through the 17 fires and the 18 fires. Had been evacuated multiple times. I have vivid memories in the 17 fires of sneaking through the vineyard on my bike with the winemaker who I lived next door to go to his winery to work on his wines because you weren't supposed to be in city limits. And so we would sneak out of our houses and go work on his vineyard. And it was, I was 24 at that time and didn't own any of the wineries I worked for. So it kind of hit me a little bit different. It was more almost kind of, you don't understand the gravity of the situation so much, and it was
Right.
almost kind of fun, where it was like, which seems so grotesque, but it was almost kind of like, under the cover of dark and in the fog and the fire, and you're just kind of, evading the cops to go to work on wine. It seemed so novel and romantic in a way.
Right.
And it wasn't until kind of the smoke cleared after that, and walking through the vineyards and seeing Atlas Mountain kind of burn to the ground, and friends of mine had wineries that burned and homes that burned, and the gravity of the situation really sunk in. And I think, I didn't really ever talk about it with anybody.
Right.
And it was kind of just like, okay, this chapter of my life is over, and I'm going to work on something else. And
Right.
I'm leaving California. Honestly, probably mostly left because the fires just got to be emotionally too traumatic and heavy, and it kind of took all the fun out of what I loved most about winemaking.
Right.
And so when the fires hit here, it was kind of like that dreaded text, and you wake up and I was like, oh no, here we go again.
Right.
Like, I was so excited about Oregon not having to worry about this and finding my love of winemaking again. We were really lucky here at this specific spot on Shaolin Mountain. It was smoky for a little bit, but for the most part, at our elevation of roughly 600 feet, we were a lot clearer than the surrounding areas, and we
Right.
didn't really have any smoke taint on our property, and we didn't have any fire damage. So I think that kind of was a shocking, jarring
Right, yeah.
re-entry to the wine world, but also we were so lucky, and
Right.
honestly, it just, it's an adventure, and if you look at it as positively as you can, that there's always a silver lining.
Well, yeah, there is, but I mean, I try to put myself in your shoes, right? I mean, you embark upon this new adventure,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, there's a possibility that it could just all literally go up in smoke,
Yeah.
and it's just
Yeah,
it's
a little
crazy.
crazy. It's a
Yeah.
little crazy. It's, I honestly, it was pretty cool having had my experience in California, because you just move into the mode of, okay, there's fire, there's possibility for immediate endangerment.
Right.
So okay, what are the situations? How do we solve that? And then once that kind of you see that the fire is moving the other direction, or that the fire closest to you is in control, and that kind of immediate threat wanes, and then you're like, okay, what about the wines?
Right.
What do we do about bringing people to the tasting room? How do we how's the best way to handle the fruit coming in? Because that was, as everybody knows, like a week to 2 weeks before harvest.
Right.
And so I was really fortunate in that arena that I had, from my contacts in California, I had an awesome group of people that had been through this, unfortunately, a lot of times, and,
Right.
and were pretty dialed with what they do in that situation. So 2020 was not the easiest year to make wine anywhere.
Right. No, it
So,
wasn't.
It was good. It was
That's
good.
good.
I think now when I think of things that pop up, or we have torrential, our winery flooded last winter. There was torrential rain, and then the heat waves this summer. It's kind of like, we got through fire in the first 5 days of being here. I think this will be okay.
We got it all. We
can probably get through this. It puts everything into perspective.
It does. And then, fast forward to the 2021 vintage.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, everybody in the valley is talking about how wonderful and beautiful it has been. And, that's kind of been the prize at the end of your journey so far. And it's just nice to see that there's a bunch of good that comes out of all this.
Oh, absolutely. I think 2021 harvest was definitely the most fun harvest I've ever done.
Right.
And we had great people, we had phenomenal wines, and just the weather was perfect. It was what you dream of as a winemaker when harvest comes. There's no rain threats, there's no pest threats, it was just pick whenever you want to pick to harvest.
Right.
You can do whatever you want. That never happens. So I was like, this is awesome. We earned this.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So what got you into wine? I mean, you got the wine bug, but how did you get that?
Yeah, my father. So
Okay.
My father is an avid wine collector. He's been collecting wine since he was 18, 19 in his college dorm. He's a little bit odd. He's super he's kind of a Renaissance man. He's into a lot of different things. And I learned my love of kind of the world and
Right.
learning as much as I could about the world through him. And for me, and also for us together as a father-daughter team, has always been to see the world through wine. You know, the best part about wine is that it's a history book. It has every glass is just, you can learn about the regions, you can learn about farming, which in turn is, you know, environment, and what the history of the arts and culture is all wrapped up in wine as well. And so
Right.
it was just like a really cool way to learn. And so I started drinking wine with him at a pretty young age, you know, sips at dinner. And
Right.
For my family, it was always sit down at the dinner table, family meal, and have a sip of his wine. And okay, what do you taste? What are you getting from this? What is the sensorial experience for you? And then once we talked about it, I'd be like, okay, let me tell you about this wine. Let me tell you about the producer and where it
Right.
comes from, because he's much like you in the sense that he loves the story just as much as the wine. And so it was always this journey that we took as a team, and I kept that with me forever. And when I got through college, you know, I always loved wine, but I was never like, this is my path or my calling.
Right.
I would go to college and studied art history and environmental geology, and so I just assumed that I would go into you know, the oil and gas world or something like that, and you know, do something, a real job, right? Like everybody says. And so when I graduated, I was done with school. I was so over it, and I was tired of science. I was just tired of everything that I'd been learning, the geology, science. I needed a break and
Right.
to do something else. And so, you know, at 21 and you need a break, and your family's like, we just helped you get through college, and you don't get to just do nothing. So under his kind of encouragement, I went to California and did my first harvest and never looked back.
Wow.
Yeah, stayed in the wine world ever since then, since 2015, and chased harvests all over the U.S. and then went to UC Davis.
Nice. Very, very
Yeah,
nice.
it was really fun. Yeah, and then took a little hiatus from the wine world and was like, maybe let me just try something out to like make sure that this is really what I want to do.
Right.
And immediately regretted it in like 2 weeks.
Well, there's so much. I mean, the world of wine in general is so vast,
Mhm.
and there's so many rabbit holes to go down.
Absolutely.
You know, and it is a real job.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I always just make fun of it as being a real job because we work such weird hours, right?
Right.
It's so, all my friends work 9 to 5, and so it's like for them to be, when they come visit or when they see harvest, they're like, this is weird. Like, what are you doing today? But it's just fun.
Well, it all ebbs and flows.
Mhm.
You have kind of a downtime, kind of like right now a little bit.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not all downtime, but you do have the ability to like, hey, I want to, you know, spend some time with my family and, you know, leave for a couple weeks, and you have that ability.
Absolutely.
You know, which
Yeah.
is really nice, and you know, and you have the ability to sit down with me today, which is great.
Yeah, it is, and you know, I think my favorite thing about doing this adventure, and the way that my family is doing it, is that I get to do everything within the business. So I'm learning all the time. You're learning. My day is never just one thing. It's
Right.
never just in the vineyard. It's never just in the winery. It's never just in the office. So it's, you know, not only are you learning every step of the way, but you're also always intrigued. The day is never the same.
Right.
So that for me is pretty exciting.
And that's with the days never being exactly the same. I remember early on, I was working at a grocery store, and I was working in the produce section. It's like, okay, time to put out the produce.
Yeah.
Time to put out the produce.
Yeah.
And I got so sick and tired of doing the same
Mhm.
exact thing. And I was so grateful in high school to know, yeah, that's not the kind of job that I want to do.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think you learn pretty early on if that's not
Right.
your path in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And making your own schedules. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty cool.
It is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
It's pretty cool. I know.
Yes. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. I don't have everything outlined perfectly.
Okay.
But when I was here in June, you had told me like the 2020 futures had sold out, you know, in March.
Mhm.
And, you know, okay, so if you look at like the end of 2020 to March, right? Like 6 months, and you're like, all my wine is sold out.
Mm-hmm.
How did that make you feel? Like, sure, that was a totally different feeling for you, in many regards.
It totally is. The previous owners had set up this futures program, which I had never heard of before.
Right.
Selling wine on futures, and as I've talked to more people in the industry, AJ, it's people keep saying, oh, this was how everybody used to do it. This is not that bizarre. It's just not really how people do it now.
Right.
And so I've learned a lot about futures, and it's pretty cool. It's a cool way to start a wine business, I think,
right.
Because overhead is really tough for people that are starting out a wine business, and so for that reason, I understand why a lot of people utilized it in the beginning. It's weird when you sell out.
Right.
The previous owner's like, oh, you're gonna sell out before the summer. That's just how it works. I was like, okay, that's not gonna happen. We don't have to worry about that. That's crazy.
Right.
And it does happen. We are sitting here on this little, I like to think of it as a little slice of heaven. It's the main estate vineyard. It's only 4 acres, 2 acres planted.
Right.
So it doesn't produce a ton of wine, and that's definitely our flagship estate wine. So they sell out pretty quickly, and I wish I made more is kind of how that makes me feel.
Right.
I wish I could make more. And you're just limited. That's the best part about estate wines, and that's why estate wines are as great as they are, is because you're always just limited by what you can physically create.
Right.
You only own so much, and you can only create so much. So, it's for me such an honor to have inherited such an incredible program that's so well respected and so well loved that selling out is would have even been on the periphery of my time
right.
here, and that it's a real experience every year is an honor.
Yeah, no, that is.
And it feels pretty great for me to be able to step into those roles that Tina has left, and to be able to foster that relationship. We talk to our clients every single day. I'm on the phone with one of them, and I know their families, and I know where their kids are going to college, and
right.
how building their retirement home is going, and we talk on a regular basis, and I would never give that for anything in the world. I think that's really unique and special.
It is unique and special to have clientele where you have that kind of connection and relationship. I mean, when you consume food or you consume anything that you put in your body, to have that connection
Mm-hmm.
is really rare in this world.
It is.
Yes.
And isn't that such a cool thing about wine, right? It connects you to so many things. It's not just connecting you to a sense of place or a terroir, but it's connecting you to each other. So
right.
Here we are having a great conversation, talking about wine and our stories, but it's all centered around a glass of wine. And I find the same with our clients. We were in Bend last weekend getting our last ski trip in, and got to meet up with some of our clients that are there, and
right.
they all just are really wonderful people, and I feel pretty honored and blessed that they trust me to carry on what Tina and Mark have created, because it's pretty impressive, and this is truly a little slice of heaven on this property. It's pretty great.
It is. Rusty, Prince of Pinot,
Mm-hmm.
if in reading about like his first visit here, seeing the barrels, and then coming up, when you come up the long driveway, I mean, you are almost like taken away,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in like a little slice of France. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it is such a unique little experience back here.
It is. It is really. It's so beautiful and fun, and I always would tell people, and it's true, that when we first moved here, I would just take my coffee out in the morning, or a glass of wine in the evening, and walk
right.
around and just like pinch myself, because I could never imagine that I'm here and that I have
right.
ended up on such an incredible space and get to work here every day, and I still feel that way. It's been like a year and a half, and I still do that regularly.
Well, yeah, I would do the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
so
would.
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, that is great. I think you mentioned earlier that you bought another vineyard to kind of like have more wine available.
Yeah, I think multifold concept. So when I came here, right, I was mostly in the cellar, and in school we covered viticulture and cellar work. So I had some understanding and some knowledge of viticulture. When we started working here at Prive and I started doing everything, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, I found that I love the vineyard the most. It's like my favorite part. My favorite days working at this business are when I'm out in the vineyard. And so for me, that and seeing it, come totally through the winery, from pruning all the way through, growing season, veraison, all the way into harvest and into your cellar the next year. For me, seeing that process really solidified what I already felt strongly about, which is really well taken care of grapes and well stewarded vineyards create really great wine because they create great grapes, right? So I think most of us believe that you can't make really great wine out of mediocre grapes.
Yes.
I think that's a pretty solid, safe bet.
Yes.
And so the decision to bring on another vineyard was, I think, multifold in the sense that it would be great to be able to offer some more estate wines for our clients. And also, the more control you have in the vineyard, the more control you have in the winery. We can tweak things here and there in the vineyard that have a massive impact on the way the wines end up at the end of their time in the cellar.
Right.
And so to be able to have a little bit more control was definitely of focus. And we ended up in Ribbon Ridge.
Okay.
So utilizing another AVA too is really awesome. Kind of expands our portfolio. I love Ribbon Ridge. It was one of those experiences where we weren't really looking. We kind of went out there just to see what was going on. And the minute I walked through the gate, I was like, it was spiritual. I felt connected to that land, and it was overwhelming.
Right.
And it just clicked. It just felt right. I think.
And that's the way it should feel.
Yeah. If you don't feel that way, it's not the right place.
Right. No, it needs to speak to you almost instantly.
Yeah. And it's an incredible piece of property. It is young. It's really young. It says 2021 was our first year pulling in fruit from the vineyard. But it's a bunch of different aspects, north, south, mostly west, a little bit of east, and it is a bunch of varietals. So where here on this estate, Prive proper, we only have Pomard, which is beautiful. But this vineyard is super fun because we have 115, 777, Badensville, and Pomard. So we can do fun blends.
Right.
We can do some single clone style, lines and wines and stuff like that. So I'm really excited.
That is exciting.
And the wines in the cellar are tasting really good from there. So
beautiful.
I'm pretty excited.
Am I remembering correctly saying that you're going to bring in some Chardonnay?
Yes, we did Chardonnay for the first time in 2021. What a learning curve. I have very limited experience working with white wines,
right?
Which is why I wanted to bring in a Chardonnay,
right?
Naturally. And yeah, it's completely different. Honestly, I shouldn't probably say this out loud, but I think it's way more fun to make than red wines. I found it to be really exciting and super stimulating, and probably because it's new, but it was such an adventure. We had beautiful fruit from Dundee come in, and it's awesome. We're so excited. We have one barrel, so it's like, don't get too excited. There's not a lot of it.
Well, you're you're getting outside your comfort zone. That's why it's exciting and everything. But like one barrel, right? If it totally goes, it's not the end of the world. Yeah.
We have tons of friends. We'll drink it, porch sipping, whatever. But
right. Or you could have a little privé party or whatever, and bring. And it's like, hey,
it's fun. It's been an adventure. Honestly, It really opened my eyes to winemaking. We've learned a bunch of new things that we can implement in the red world as well, which is pretty cool. Made us much more efficient in our production procedure. It's we had to change a little bit about how we bring fruit in from harvest and how we process it into the cellar. So that was pretty cool. And kind of, we found that it actually works really well for reds, our new
Right.
process as well. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, it's so fun. It's really fun to go to the winery and tasting your reds all the time is really fun. But when you get to that white brown, you're like, what is it going to be? What's going to happen?
That's awesome.
Is it going to be white? What color? So
Right.
it's been really good. And it's
That's
so
great.
fun. And I don't know. When you start something new, you just read a bunch. And
Right.
I get kind of like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, let's try all the things.
Exactly. You got to.
And yeah, it was really fun.
That's
it
great.
Was an adventure. And the fruit was beautiful. We were so lucky to have this fruit. And, almost kind of like so beautiful that it was a little intimidating. But
Right.
But yeah, it's tastes really good as well, and so we'll see it out to the end. And
I'm sure it's going to be
we're already
fabulous.
bringing in some, not already bringing it in, but we already have some contracts for some white fruit this year as well. So we'll see.
Nice.
I'm pretty excited about it.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
So, speaking again of Rusty, Prince of Pinot, like years and years and years, like he has set the bar really freaking high of like how he feels about your wine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel any pressure of like, I hope not to disappoint you?
The first time he called, and I knew who he was. I don't have his number saved, so I had no, I just answered, hello, Prive Vineyards. And I think it was pretty early in the morning. I like hadn't had all my coffee yet. And he's like, oh, it's Rusty from Prince of Pinot. I'm like, okay. Okay, what can I do for you?
Right.
And he like starts talking, and I was like, it dawned on me like 5 minutes into the conversation who I was speaking with, and that he has been such a compliment to Prive Wines for so long,
Right.
And had such a beautiful relationship with Tina as well that kind of grew out of his love for Prive Wines, and I got a little shaken on the phone.
I could imagine.
And honestly, it was such a beautiful conversation. He was so easy to talk to, and I'm so excited. He bought a bunch of the wines I've made for Prive as well, and he got them last year, and so I'm just giddy to to see what he has to say about them.
Right.
But yeah, and it'll be an adventure. Like we said, 2020 was an interesting year, and so I think the biggest hurdle there is probably overcoming what we think the wine should be, right? As a general wine drinking community, we've all been in those rooms or at those tables where someone's sipping a glass of wine or enjoying a glass of wine or a tasting, and based on something that the person who's pouring the wines has said, or what they may know about the weather that happened generally in Oregon or in the Pacific Northwest or something, they may, like a lot of, and I do it as well, form opinions about wines before I truly taste them. And so it'll be really interesting, I think, to see what people think about the 20s. I think Oregon wineries as a whole have worked really, really hard to put out the places that have put out red wines tried really hard to put out, phenomenal wines, and I feel like we all kind of are in the same theory as if it wasn't perfect, we wouldn't release it.
Right, exactly.
And so, we're all putting our best foot forward, and so. But to get Rusty to taste wines, I've read Rusty's reports since I was a little kid, and so for him to be tasting wines that I've made is pretty crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, so he talked about and I'm going to mispronounce.
That's okay.
The
Joie de vie.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, so this is what he wrote in his end of year. He said, etched bottle number 38 out of 288, signed by winemaker Tina Hammond. It was a glorious drinking experience. This extraordinary wine rivaled any domestic Pinot I have ever drunk. Although Pinot Noir is known as a finicky grape that likes to play hard to get, this wine was beguiling upon opening, and it evolved into an orgasmic experience when I finished the bottle the following day to kick off the new year with a score of 99. That's just absolutely amazing.
It is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
It is. Honestly, I think knowing what I know about this place, having only been here a short while.
Right.
This hillside, it's just special. You know, there's just something about these vineyards. And Joie de Vie is a staple. It's a flagship estate wine, and it's a blend of our northern block and our southern block. So normally those two blocks are bottled separately. And
Right.
for one barrel every year, we bottle them together. And it's usually roughly about a 50-50 blend. And, you know, I think that's my favorite one as well for Prive. And I think that what Rusty's touching on is really true, is that, you know, you're getting all these beautiful tannin structure from SALUD, which is lower in elevation, a little bit warmer, and you're getting all these beautiful kind of lighter, softer, dancing notes out of Lenord that are happening more because it's a higher elevation, it's cooler, and it gets a different subclimate and microclimate. And so, you know, I would say I agree.
Well, yeah, I yes.
But yeah, I mean, to have someone write something like that about anything that I'm even
Right.
remotely correlated to is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
And Tina's a phenomenal winemaker. You know, she's brilliant, and she has taught me a lot. And you know, we raised a glass when we read that, and I said, you know, now you
Right.
can retire pretty confidently, I think.
Yeah. No, that is great.
It's a good way to go out.
It very much is. You know, in the comment that Rusty made about the following day, a few weeks ago, I opened up the 2020 Syrah,
Mm-hmm.
and as it kind of aged and opened up more and more, I was like, this is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. It was fabulous. Especially on day 2.
I opened a 2020 Lenord last week, Wednesday, and because fellow winemaker was like, oh, how are your 20s tasting? I was like, oh, I don't know, I haven't really tasted them. And I was like, oh, I probably should. I should probably do that. So I opened up a bottle of the Lenord, and it gets better and better.
Right.
And better as it opens up. It was pretty tight right off the bat. Granted, it's really young.
Right.
But yeah, I think, honestly, I found most of our wines to drink better the next day, which was kind of cool.
That is, it's
like,
very
pretty
cool.
hard to create in the winemaking world, so I'm brought taken.
Yes.
And the Syrah is like, I always tell clients when they come in and taste it, I'm like, pretty sure I'm not supposed to say this since we make Pinot Noir, but the Syrah is probably my favorite. It's so fun.
It is so good.
It's
And
weird and fun and different than what you think it's going to be, which I love, and
yeah.
it's really fun to make. Syrah is so fun. You know, Pinot really is like the heartbreak grape. It's really finicky. It's hard. I always call it like the ugly stepsister or brother to the Syrah, because I go out there and I can trust the Syrah. Like, I know exactly what it's going to do. I
Right.
know before it even does anything what is going to happen. The Pinot, it's like every day. It's like, who knows? Are they coming home tonight? Don't know. Like, did they try doobie after school? Probably. I don't know.
Oh no, that's not good.
Control them. They're just free roaming on their own.
Right.
So, but yeah, I love the Syrah. We try and make it really light in style. I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and the story that you told me about Tina trying to actually get grapes from that vineyard.
Lake Helene, what a beautiful
Right.
vineyard. You know, I had a client today actually email me and say, do you think you'll keep making the Syrah? What do you think? And I was like, forever, as long as like Helene will sell me fruit, I will make fruit from them, because
Right.
their farming technique is really stunning. They do such a good job. It's the most beautiful fruit that comes in every year, no matter what, including my own vineyard. So,
Right.
They do a really good job, and it's just fun. It's really fun. We're gonna play around some more with some more varietals out of there, because I think that's how you stay sharp and make better wine in the long run, is to do
Right.
play with stuff and do weird things out of your comfort zone.
I couldn't agree more.
So we'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So speaking of being outside your comfort zone, I think you were a junior in college, and you were playing volleyball,
Mm-hmm.
and you tore your ACL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That had to be quite an experience of like not being able to do anything, and like rehabilitating, and like just you had forced downtime.
Absolutely. Yeah, right, AJ, like everybody has a story like this, or some sort of an experience that completely alters their perception of who they are.
Right.
And my whole life, I grew up and I was an athlete. Like, that was my identifier, and that was my persona. That's what my whole family did. We did athletics. and all of them.
Right,
Like,
right.
and you were good at them, and that was how it was. And I really did. I mean, I'm 6 foot. I'm not a small person, so every first question everybody always asks, like, volleyball or basketball, and so you get used to it, right? And,
Right.
And that was always who I identified as, and even now, like, super active still, and love running around, always on my feet, and to be forced to sit for 6 months, and honestly, it took me more like 2 years to really be 100% myself, and I think, yeah, it was honestly really, really beneficial in the long run, even though at the time it felt like my life was over.
Right.
And I was, 20, so your life is over. But
Yes, it's all over.
Yeah, and it was really eye opening. It was like, okay, what do I still had, disillusions of, I'm gonna play overseas and I'm gonna do this after college, and I'm really glad I didn't do that, because I would have missed out on a lot of really incredible experiences that I had chasing wine around. And I think the other really major thing that it taught me that people are starting to be more open about, I think, now, is that mental health is really, really important.
Right.
And in all aspects of life, right? And at all ages. And, I had so much fear about trusting my body and myself during that time of my life. And I think finding that seeing therapy was awesome and really beneficial, and made me just a better version of who I want to be, was critical for getting me here, because I still go to therapy all the time, and if I didn't, I probably wouldn't be here, especially after 2020.
Oh my goodness. But therapy within itself is just like getting everything out of your head is just
Absolutely.
wonderful,
Absolutely.
And I know that you bike ride, I bike ride. And so for me, when I bike ride, it is like, I call it sweating to get the crazy out.
Yes. Yeah. It's like active meditation. Right? It's I don't meditate super well. I'm very type A. It's like not really in my DNA.
Right.
But I find movement in meditation is really critical for me. I mean, whether it's walking the vineyard, pruning, just focusing so fully on something like traffic when you're on your bike, or your own breathing because you're dying, you're going uphill. Because I don't know how, it doesn't matter how much you bike, Chehalem Mountain is still a drag.
It does, yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No.
For me, those moments allow me to be able to step into the winery or step into the office and just offer better customer service, create a better wine, get out of my way a little bit in terms of, not just making wine, but running a company, and allowing it to do the, work for you really is really kind of, you have to trust yourself that you've put everything in the right place, that you found the right people, and trust that you made the right initial decisions so that it can do what it's supposed to do. And same with the wines, you trust that you brought them in at the right time, and you pruned correctly, and you sprayed correctly, and you nurtured correctly, so that right now when they're sitting in the cellar, like, I can just trust that they're going to be okay. They're going to be really good, and that takes a lot of mental fortitude, and a lot of therapy. And I think I never probably would have found my way there without that experience in college. Yeah,
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and the same with the fires. It's being able to work through that in your, through the grief and fear and stress, through getting out and biking or walking the vineyard or whatever it is. I know we have kind of the same dog, I think.
Yes.
And they are, you could even be just hanging out with them, because she is the most empathetic, compassionate animal I have ever experienced.
Well, Aussies, they are so toned into like just the slightest little different eye movement, and they're like,
you breathe differently, and they're like on top of you.
Right.
You good?
Yeah. And
intense.
it is intense.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and sometimes it's a little bit too intense for me at times.
Yeah.
But for the most part, my little Aussie, he is just an amazing little guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty special. I try. She gets to go out in the vineyard with me a lot, but
I can imagine.
They're pretty special. But yeah, it's all about mental health and yeah, whether it's hanging out with her and
Right.
sometimes she even picks up on like, Piper, you need to go on a bike ride before like I pick up that I need to go on a
Right.
bike ride. And she's like pawing me like, please go outside, you're losing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I've seen that you've been out in, Oregon wine country a little bit more. I saw that you went to Abbott Claim one day.
I did.
What did you think of the Abbott Claim tasting experience?
Oh my gosh. Who wouldn't love that? It's incredible.
It is incredible.
They're building, so Ben, my partner, is
Right.
he's an architecture. So we usually pick wineries, like I pick one that I've been dying to go to based off of, I met the winemaker talked to me, or, a client said that I love their wines, or, something along those lines. And then Ben gets to pick one based off of architecture. And I had never heard of Abbott Claim before. And he was like, we have to go. We studied it in school. We got to go. We go. And I was blown away.
Right.
What a beautiful structure. It's just a really incredible experience. You talk about transported back to Europe.
Right.
Tasting in that barrel room, I was like, I'm underground in a cave in Europe. Like this is where I am now. And I didn't even get on a plane, and it's COVID. What?
Right. Well, so when I went, I was, he has changed it up a little bit.
Okay.
So I first went, no. I think you have
most recent.
Yes. The first time I went, we met in like a little conference room. There was still construction and stuff going on. I'm like, okay, this will be a normal little experience. Poured the bubbly, had a little bite, a little bit more wine. And then he's like, come on, I want to show you something. So everywhere I go, I have my little journal with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he was just going to show me something and then we'd come back.
Yeah.
And then that's when we went underground and just like totally blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what really struck me, of course, architecture right off the bat is striking.
Right.
And what a weird way, right, to think I shouldn't say all of us, but like a lot of people, really myself included, think about architecture and like, how do I get the best view? I feel like their whole system really forces you to turn inside and be like, okay, let's focus on the wines because that's what we're here to do.
Right.
And so we're going to actually go underground, even though we have a beautiful site. And we're going to talk about them underground where we're surrounded by them in their best climate, which is really cool. But the second thing that really struck me was, the idea of pouring someone else's wines at your tasting is really awesome.
It is.
How incredible is that to not only support your friends and people that you respect in the community, but to also be like, put your ego to the side and just share wine like we're doing here. That's what wine is supposed to be. It's supposed to be creating a connection with someone. It's not supposed to be about yourself or how you make wine. It's about wine in general.
It is.
Everybody does it differently, and that's the beauty of it. We can all respect all the ways.
Right. The Oregon.
So I found that pretty cool.
It is very cool. I really appreciate it. The Oregon wine community in general is absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you got to see a glimpse of that at SALUD, didn't you?
Oh, SALUD. What an incredible, just everything about it is incredible.
Right.
I just loved everything about that experience. We have been looking for kind of the right philanthropic space for us, I guess is a good way to say it. The previous owners had a bunch of kids, and they had slightly different beliefs outside of the wine world than we did. And so what they were, donating their time, money, and space to didn't necessarily speak to Ben and I. We don't have any kids. We have kind of different philosophies. And so we've just been kind of trying to figure out like where we want to donate our time and our space and our life to. So SALUD was such an incredible experience. What an incredible organization. To be able to be surrounded by people that have supported it from the beginning is incredible. It's so cool. AJ, we sat with the couple that own Winderly at our table, and they were awesome. I've never felt so welcomed into any scenario, space, community experience before. It's just like open arms, come in, like sit with us,
Right.
enjoy yourself, and you know, it was just such an incredible. I mean, everyone at the event was like that, and it was so fun to also just go out of our house and like see other people and wear something other than sweatpants. It was
Right.
pretty cool.
And actually socialize a little bit. Yes,
and
yes.
meet other people in the industry. You know, that's the only downside to moving somewhere in a pandemic is really not that easy to meet people.
It's not. It's not.
So it was really fun, and yeah, I'm really glad to be a member of that program, and I'm
Right.
really glad to be supporting them and in whatever they need, and to continue raising money for them. And I would love to somehow correlate bikes to that because we're a big bike family, and
Ooh.
I think that's pretty cool.
Well, there's a lot of people. I mean, like Jessica Cortell, Dan and Jean from Corollary, myself. I'm sure that we could like.
We should do that.
That would like get a.
Well, I want to start. I've been wanting to start. I'm not really sure how to do it. I should probably just email you. It sounds like.
We can figure something out.
I've been wanting to start like a monthly bike ride out of here.
Right.
Because there's tons of really cool trails around here, and great roads and great paths and all sorts of cool spots. And so, both Ben and Ben used to race bikes, and I did not. I just learned when I graduated college and needed an adventure.
Right.
But it's kind of a great, because it's pretty social.
Yeah.
And just come back afterwards and have some wine and hang out. And,
yeah. Dehydrate.
Yeah.
Don't drink any water and come back and dehydrate some more.
I know. Everybody's always like, oh, I'm more, it's like more of a beer thing. And I'm like, it can be a wine thing.
It can be a totally wine thing.
Now that we make white wine, it's like, might as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm curious on your take on this. Do you consider wine art?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, AJ, I think the coolest thing about wine is that it's a blend of science and art.
Right.
Which there's not that many parts of the world or activities or products within the world that you can create that are a really beautiful blend of science and art. I mean, could you make wine without art? I think so.
It'd be kind of boring.
Yeah. What would it turn into? I'm not entirely sure. I think it's definitely possible. I think that, you know, you gotta have a blend. You gotta have a blend of both.
Right. Because
fermentation is science and growing grapes is science. And a little bit of feel, I think, as I'm learning. You ask me to go to the valley, you're like, oh, how did you know when to do that? Or like, why did you make that cut? And they're like, oh, it's feel. And I'm like, I just knew to do that. I'm like, what? How do I do that? How do I learn to do that?
Through meditation.
Yes, right? Like just sit out in the vineyard and be one
exactly.
with your fruit. But yeah, it's I think you can really tell that art is an important part of winemaking because you can take Lake Helene is a great example. You know, off the top of my head, I know like 3 wineries around here that make Syrah from Lake Helene, and their straws and my straw are not similar, and their straws are not similar. No one, and they're all coming from the same block and the same vineyard, farmed exactly the same way.
Right.
So we're getting them home, and we're doing our magic, and they're coming out completely different. So all wonderful. And so I think that's right. If we just did science, theoretically,
it would all be the same.
Right,
they would be.
And so it's pretty cool. I think that's what allows it to have a culture and an entire communities around the world that are thriving, because if everybody just made the same wine,
it would be boring.
No one would care.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Go. Okay.
Favorite artist to listen to during harvest?
Ooh, music-wise?
Yes.
Bonnie Raitt.
Okay. Favorite indulgent food?
I think lobster mac and cheese.
Ooh, nice. If you could choose a superpower, what would it be?
Talk to animals.
harvest notes? Are they digital or handwritten?
I handwrite them, and I handwrite them on little scraps of paper, which is not, I don't suggest it. And so at the end of harvest, I end up with like a big Ziploc of my harvest notes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I hope I never have to pass them on to anyone. I should move digital. I struggle digital. I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, you carry a notebook around.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
much better at like hand.
It depends to me on the platform. Like, what am I doing? You know, when I'm out tasting or whatever, typing, I can't.
Impersonal.
Yeah, I can't type. It's just like I need to be able to scribble, scrabble, and go all over the place.
I will say that when we took over Prive, getting a Word document file of like the previous winemaker's notes was really cool.
I could imagine.
So I think going digital would be really cool. And it would probably make it easier to like look back at what the experiences I've had.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not there yet. So
That's fair. I mean, it's still early on, so I think it's fine.
But a lot of times I come home from the end of the day and I have notes all over my hand, and then I transfer them to a notebook.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Your favorite superhero?
Oh, I don't know a lot of superheroes. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Okay.
But I think if I had to pick a favorite superhero, well, I haven't seen this movie, but I feel like it would be The Black Widow because I really like Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. Okay.
And she's really the only. Well, I guess Superwoman is kind of cool.
Yeah, and you have Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
right.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's. Yeah, one of those.
Okay, that's fair.
Cool.
What is the last book you read?
Actually, I finished it this morning. It is called Sunlight Canopy Management.
Oh.
Yes. Very exciting. It's a really recent volume when one of the photos and the diagrams at the end and the appendices is like someone like black and white, someone on their computer, like a laptop in the vineyard, and the caption of the photo is Kate working on vineyard notes with her portable computer. I was like, this is prime knowledge.
That's awesome.
Right off, hot off the press.
Hot off the press. I'm sure you had to work really hard to find a copy of that book.
I did, yes.
I can imagine.
I did learn a lot. I'll probably have to fact check and make sure that it's not obsolete now, though.
I'm sure everything kind of builds upon itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most vineyard books are pretty old.
They are.
So I don't know if there's, we got to get some new influx of information, maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Shall we reveal the wine?
Yes. Oh, tell me, yes.
Okay.
I'm very excited.
Zoom.
I haven't had any of their wines yet.
I know.
I was going to say, well, I knew they would pick a Oregon wine, but I was going to say it's kind of got like a Sonoma Coast funky, earthy note.
Yeah, so the 2019 Luminous Hills from Kings North, it's a higher elevation vineyard, and it's just, the two brothers down there at Kings North, Mac and Sid, they're doing some pretty cool stuff down there.
I gotta meet them. They're just across the way.
Yeah, they're just like right across the street.
I know. They reached out in the fall, and I was like, I don't know what's happening.
Not right now.
I will call you back. And they felt the same way. So I know.
Yeah.
We actually talked to Ken from Rain Dance at SALUD, and he was like, we've got to get everybody together from our little like ghetto of winemakers here. We've got such a Hazelfern and Kings North and Oliver Springs. I've heard really great things, and they're so nice. I've met them, but I haven't had their wines yet. And
yeah, and you have Bells Up. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. Medici, I know, has a plethora of winemakers up there that I've heard unbelievably cool things about, but I have not met any of them. But yeah, we got a little ghetto here on Bell Road, so we gotta get together.
Yeah. No, I thought it would be nice to bring somebody from like the
fabulous.
hood. It is.
It's very smooth.
Yeah.
And for such a young wine. Plus, I really like their label. It's like very. It fits in. It's like very clean and.
So they grew up in Wisconsin, and there's actually a hardy grape up in Wisconsin called the King of the North,
Very cool.
and so that's where they got the name of their.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I grew up in Minnesota. We're like neighbors.
Yeah.
I'll have to reach out. Yeah, I've heard really good things. We have a ton of people that come and taste here after there and
Right.
say great things about it. So
Yeah. No, Mac considered great. So.
good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you
I'm
enjoyed.
glad you poured this for me. This
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you. This
Yes.
was really fun.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.